All right, welcome to episode 4 of the Modern Day Heroes podcast. I'm super pumped for who we got on the pod today, man. I'll do a little introduction, then we'll let you introduce yourself. But first time we ever met, dude, I don't know if you remember this. I think in 2021, you were selling your boat. It was a little Malibu, like 2018. And I'd been following you for a while, and Brody Fausett was just the guy I wanted to be like, become, have the same lifestyle. And so you were selling your boat, and I was like, dude, I'll buy your boat off you if you can throw in one-on-one coaching. And you're like, yeah, like I'm willing to like see what it'd look like. And then it kind of stopped from there.
Yeah.
But I think that was our first interaction, dude. And then we've been able to get super close over the last 12 months and been really grateful for it, dude.
That's funny. I remember that now that you bring that up. Cause I'm like, is this dude for real? Because like, I have cash. I'll give you cash for it. I'll just like, let me know if it's still available. It's like, I'm like, does he either A, doesn't have the cash or like doesn't really want it? I don't know. I'm like, he's like, just let me know if like you still have it, then I'll buy it cash if we can do some sort of. I'm like, okay. But you didn't end up getting it, huh?
Didn't end up getting it, dude. But yeah, the boat was like the secondary thing. It was just more the mentoring I was hoping for. But Brody Fausett has been an example to me in a lot of facets of life, dude. And a legend as far as door to door, how you've created wealth, real estate, and most importantly, as a husband, as a father, as a child of God. And I've always admired those last 3 about you. And then the other 3 have been cool things and amazing things that you've done with your life. But the last 3 are the most important. So grateful to have you on the pod and so pumped that we get to be with you, dude.
Thanks, man. No, I appreciate you saying that. And obviously, super grateful to be here. Just fun. Always fun chopping up with you. Always fun hanging out. And, yeah, man, it means a lot coming from you because you're going places. You already are places. And I just appreciate your love, your friendship.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Give us an insight, dude. Give us the origin of who Brody Fausett is. Help us maybe start from the beginning, dude.
Yeah, dude. So, I mean, I feel like, I don't know if my story is that special or that different, but I'll give it to you anyways. So if we go back, I'm the oldest of 6 kids. So it's interesting how like all that comes into play, I think, with like leadership and just you're like forced to kind of figure a lot of these things out, and your parents are using you as a guinea pig as they raise you and whatnot. And so that was really good for me, just early on being in that situation. But as far as like growing up, dude, I moved around a lot. I remember at one point, I told my mom, and I'd been to like 5 different schools the last 5 years. And we didn't always move, but some of it was like going from, one school to the next because of boundary change or whatever. So my dad, like he had the same career for 14 years and just felt like he needed a career change. So we went from living in Utah and moved to Vegas so we could like go back to school and have this kind of career shift, and kind of crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah. Super interesting. He just felt like that's what he needed to do. And so it was kind of like when we moved to Vegas, we didn't know where we were going to end up or be. And so it was like renting and then moving to another place and moving to another place. And it was interesting because as soon as I said that to my mom, like we stayed at the same place for the next little while. And I think part of it, they felt bad. They're like, yeah, we're doing this to our children. No, but like I say that because it was like a lot of like resiliency. And I remember I remember like as a kid, just like crying in my room because I was leaving all my friends, leaving from Utah. And so looking back, obviously so good because you learn so much from that and grow so much from that. But yeah, man, like we didn't have a ton of money, but we like also weren't poor. I was the kid that had to pay for everything growing up, which I was so mad about as a high school kid. And you like have to pay for the spirit pack so you can have like the football jersey or whatever. And I remember just like, nobody has to pay for this. Like none of my friends do. But it's funny because my wife was the same way growing up as well. And that's just like how she was raised, and they didn't have a lot to work with either. And so it was one of those things where looking back now, I'm so grateful.
For sure, dude.
And I remember playing sports, and like at the time I didn't understand it, but I remember this one kid on my team, like, I don't need a job. My dad said my job's to go hit in the cage for this many hours, and he pays me, and I remember thinking like, dude, that's the life. Like
Hmm.
I have to go after this, go work this shift or whatever to make sure I have gas money, right?
Yeah.
Makes it sound like I grew up dirt poor. It
No,
wasn't
I was
it
the
wasn't
same
like
way.
that at all, man. But so grateful for those things and those challenges. Just kind of growing up. And then I mean, I don't know how deep you want me to
Real quick, will
want
you
me
do
to
the same
get.
for your kids, or what's your philosophy?
Oh yeah, for sure. Which is gonna be hard.
Especially with
Like,
girls, dude.
especially with girls, and yeah, especially with me. I'm just like, I'm a softie when it
For
comes
sure,
comes
bro.
to that, you know. Like we've already talked about. Like think about, I don't want like a vehicle in my driveway that's leaking oil and stains and like, no, like let's just go get something new, you know. But that's easier to buy the new
Yeah.
thing, but
Yeah.
also it's not going to do nearly as much for them, I feel like. And so, yeah, I love that you bring that up because it's just like something I feel like you have to intentionally think about because life just happens and kids just grow up. And so we try and intentionally do
Cool.
a lot of these little
Cool.
things and teach them. And, you know, like we put rental properties under each of their names, but like they
Sick.
also have to earn it, you know? So it's like if we need to call a plumber, like they're the ones calling the plumber, they're the ones dealing with it, but they also are the ones that are understanding like how much money's coming in, making sure the bills get paid, seeing what's left over, just understanding how that works real world, which is cool because they get that opportunity, but at the same time, they also have to work for it.
Way rad.
Yeah.
We'll keep going, dude. Sorry I cut you off.
Yeah, dude. No, I mean, like I said, I don't feel like my story's that, you know, special or different probably from like most people out there. I feel like early on, I always had this drive, but I didn't have the direction. And I remember just thinking like I would do the things that like didn't you make like I remember like waking up super early in the morning and it was dark and I would go like during baseball season and I would turn on the lights, like twist the lights, and it was just me hitting off a tee by myself. It was freezing cold outside and like I wanted to work so hard, or like I'd try and get the 2 days in, and like I was doing everything wrong. I don't say wrong, like it probably helped, you know,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like there was no direction with it. I just knew I wanted to do something. I got inspired easy, and like I'm like, hey, I want to do something big and do something different, and always trying to find that. I had a coach like in high school, who just randomly ended up coaching me. Like I wrestled for a couple of years. He was my football coach. He was my baseball coach.
Wow,
And,
that's cool.
yeah, it was really cool. And like he just kind of changed my mindset on a lot of these things as far as giving me that direction. And so I started to see like some momentum and see some success. And then that really like fueled my stuff. And then I feel like even I got into track in high school too, and in cross country, like towards the end. And that was cool for me because it was like this 1 versus 1. And there's not a lot of technique aside from like, if you're going to work hard and put in the work, like you're going to be one of the best. Right. And so I started to see that and started to like realize, oh, I can actually get ahead in life if I can have these big dreams and goals and be like obsessed with them and like close my eyes and have dreams and like write it on the wall and like get so excited and then like go and put in all the work. Like I can see that come to fruition. And I feel like that kind of concept just set the stage for business, set the stage for life, for all the goods, man. So from there, I graduated high school.
Attaboy.
I served a mission in Japan for the Church of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints, and was there for 2 years. And
How was that?
dude, that was amazing. One of the top 2 hardest things I've ever done in my life, hands down. Just talk about like being so alone, right? And it's one thing I think to, I don't know, serve in a place where you understand people and they speak English, and so you're away from your family, but like you still like have that, I don't know, you have that community, I guess, from a standpoint of you can communicate with other people aside from just your companion, right, that you're with. In Japan, like you didn't get that. Like missionaries are spaced out,
Yeah.
and so you just like, I remember it was like my 4th month being there, and I got transferred out to this area. The closest other missionary was 6-hour train ride. And people, like I would knock on someone's door sometimes. I remember this little kid looking up at me, and his mom's like, I'm sorry, like he's never seen a white person before.
Wow.
And so just feeling like so alone during those times where there's literally nowhere to turn. Like you can't call your mom. You can't call like you're like journaling and then you're praying and talking to God.
Yeah, dude.
And I feel like it was such a special time because there was literally nowhere else to turn. And you're in this situation where like the only way to like get this comfort is through like Heavenly Father. And I feel like that was so special because I grew that relationship. And then, yeah, like it sounds interesting now, like looking back, but I started like, I almost got competitive. Right. And, just like, hey, I remember when it hit me, and this is the advice I give to anybody that's like going to go and leave and do their thing for 2 years. I'm like, when you get back, there's going to be things that are more important in your life. You know, like you're going to be finding a wife, starting a family, like all these things are going to be the most important thing. But I remember when everything clicked for me was like, when I realized like, hey, if I die tomorrow, the only thing that matters right now is how good of a job I did with what I have going on right in front of me. And as soon as that like clicked, then I was like all in and yeah, just started really focusing on my purpose in being there and grew so much, overcame so much and loved it, dude. Nothing
Love it,
but
bro.
good memories.
Love that.
Yeah.
And you get back. What year did you get back?
I got back in 2013.
Look at you, dude. Growing up already, man.
I know. Yeah, I'm an old guy.
So you get back 2013. And how soon after did you get in the doors? And who manipulated you into doing it, dude?
The doors is in the real estate doors or the knocking doors?
Knocking doors.
Knocking doors. So, yeah, so I got back. I had a leadership scholarship for SUU. So I'm like, I'm saving as much money as I can. I'm just going to go here. And it was actually like, that's when I got into real estate before I got into knocking doors. That was kind of by accident, but then I was on campus and someone tapped me on the shoulder. This was the pickup line. Like, I'm like, maybe this still works. Maybe you need to try this. I don't know. He's like, you on the track team? And I'm like, how does he know this? Cause I almost ran track there. And I'm like, no, but like I could be. And, and he's like, oh, okay. Like you look like you could be fast or something. I'm like, oh, what's this guy doing? And so he just like started a conversation. And like I said, I've always like had the drive. It's just more of like the direction and where to put it. And I was entrepreneur minded already. I felt like where I was always the person. And even today, like I love the idea of working harder today for an easy tomorrow. We actually talking about this a little bit on the car.
Love it, dude.
Driving over here. And just kind of talking about like for some people, it's more of like this play thing, right? If they have the opportunity to make overtime or like go snowboarding that day, like a lot of them go snowboarding. Like you and I were just like, yeah, like I like the idea of working the overtime so that you can get ahead and save that up and then you can go snowboarding whenever you want to.
Yeah.
And there's a balance with that, obviously, but that's just always my mindset. So all of a sudden, like I hear a little bit about this opportunity and I've heard different things like in the past about people going out and, you know, making $20,000 in a summer. And so I like had that in the back of my mind and they just basically present this opportunity where like, this is the way it works. You go work really, really hard. But then if you do that, you don't have to work the rest of the year.
Right.
And that was appealing to me.
Door to door, guys, make sure you're taking notes on that pickup line. That's fire.
You on the track team?
You look fast. I'm curious. I want to dive into this actually because I think this concept of work today so you can play tomorrow is actually a big piece of your brand. And I think it's super intriguing. Anybody that can buy into that concept can have it. Was there somebody or something that introduced that idea or that concept to you? Or did that just come through you over time through your experiences?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I can think of a few moments, right? And it probably goes even back further than this, but I remember the furthest back I can remember, I don't know if you were in like Boy Scouts when you have to sell like the cards, and if you sold X amount, you get a prize.
Yeah,
and, like, the more you sell, the bigger the prize. And I remember wanting this pocket knife so bad, and I could feel it. Like I could feel it from my scout leader who like handed me the cards, went to pick them up, and she said something like, yeah, nobody's like asked me if I've wanted to buy one yet. And like, obviously cues are going off like, oh, I should maybe ask her if she wants to buy one. But you're so scared, like you're terrified and I don't know how old you are in Scout, 8, 12. I don't know.
9.
I don't know, whatever it is. Yeah. And so I didn't ask her. My mom was there though when we went to pick him up. And so we go get back in the car and she's like, hey, like, I think if you asked her if she wanted to buy one, she would buy it. And I remember being so just so nervous, but like, I'm like, oh, okay. And I got out of the car and I went up there and asked her if she wanted to buy one, and she bought one. And I ended up getting this pocket knife, and just that like feeling of like uncomfort, but like, but then it got you ahead and got you towards your goals. The next thing that I remember is my grandpa. He had a ranch growing up. It was like 45 minutes from where we lived, and he had a lot of property. And in the summertime, there's so much work to do, a lot of like farm work and different things. And so this is before I was 16, couldn't really get a job, and I would go work with him in the summer, and there's so much work. So he's like, hey, I'm going to pay you hourly. I'm paying you $12 an hour, which was a big deal for a pre-16-year-old kid.
For sure.
Couldn't make money getting like a normal job. And he's like, I'm going to pay you as many hours as you work, but like, here's the deal. Like, you don't get paid while you're taking a lunch. It's not the way it works. So you choose when you want to do that. Like, if you take a nap, you don't get paid, and you clock in and you keep track of your hours. You clock out when you're done. And so for me, it ingrained this concept of like working harder today for an easier tomorrow. So I'm like, okay, like quick lunches. I don't need to take an hour lunch, because I'm not getting paid for it. And if I wake up early and start earlier, I can get in these 12-hour days. So in my mind, I could get in 12-hour days, and I could work 6 days a week, and there's always the work that was going to be there. So I think that actually like led into sales and commission, and then led into passive income and real estate, because it started to get in my mind of like, dude, there's an opportunity to go work harder today, right now, and it's going to set me up for the future, because now I have money for a rainy day, or like now when we go back to, middle school or whatever it was, like I can afford, a paintball gun, whatever, because I was willing to grind when a lot of my friends, were at the lake and doing these other things.
I remember when I was on my mission, I was 21. Up to that point, my entire perspective of work was you work till you're 65. And then like my grandparents, bro, they both retired at 65, and then they started traveling. And that's when we like got to hang out with them, and it was great. It was super fun. But my mission president was talking to me about his story, and he was 39 years old, just, brings his kids out to Peru. He's teaching us. For anyone that doesn't know what mission president is, they guide a mission of 180, 200 missionaries, and they're like their parents basically. But my mission president was telling me how he retired at 35. And that one sentence, like those words for me was like, holy smokes, bro, that has happened before. And so all of a sudden, dude, I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it. How do I do it? And it's like, bro, I'd way rather travel at 36 than at 66. And absolutely changed my entire mindset, dude. So I resonate with that. And I'm grateful for moments. I'm grateful for people. Like, I love that you had that experience at a young age where it's like, dude, I can get ahead. I can figure out how to work the system, and then you get real estate, and then you get the doors. And so it's fun to see the different opportunities you've been presented with. And how old are you now?
31.
Okay, don't tell anyone. But it's fun to see, dude, like here we are 31, and so many different chapters and experiences you've had that have created that, and what you've created in such a short amount of time.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it is crazy. And I think we were talking about it earlier too. It's just like, there's all these different versions of you, right? And just like graduating from one version to the next. And it's this constant like learning. And I think like one of the cheat codes to life is being like, okay, what do I actually want? What's like version 5 look like, for what's version 10 look like? And how do I skip, like, right? Because a lot of times we're just only thinking with the process that we have, the ability we have to think in the current version that we're in, and that only allows us to think to like the next version, right? And to us that seems like big, and that's like, oh, I gotta get to this next version, and then when we get there, and then we get to another version, and then we get to another version, as opposed to like, hey, how can I go get to version 5 because I believe it and I want to go do that, and learn the lessons I'm supposed to learn quicker. And I think it's just like super fun to dive into, you know?
Along with that point, dude, I think we go back to work today so you can play tomorrow. And we'll have to dive into this a little bit, but you get shoulder tap. You go out, you sell. You get surrounded by guys like Casey Baugh, Jeff Mendez, some of these local heroes, dude, that for us, it's like these guys are on another level, just incredible.
Yeah.
And a lot of what they preach and a lot of what you preach is living life by design. It's like constructing it, build it, ride it, live it.
Yeah.
How had the door-to-door experience, that culture, that environment, those people influenced you to where you're at today as far as living life by design?
Yeah, man. Huge for multiple reasons, which I'm going to tell you a few of them.
Please.
But backing up, like when I got into the sales space, right, I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. I'm like, I want to come out and shadow you. And I got lucky because the guy that recruited me, his name's Cole Nelson, who like tapped me on the shoulder. And it's funny because he's probably the most like under the radar like sales dog that exists, right? He was top rep in Vivint history for, I don't know if he still is. He's probably not anymore because he's toned it down now. But at the time he recruited me, I think it was like year like 9 or 10, and he's still doing it, right? And he's selling 400 plus accounts. Like before that was a thing that people were doing. So it was cool. Like just being able to like learn from him was awesome. He didn't recruit anybody. He was just like, that's what he did. And he got kind of talked into it. Was Dave Allred was his regional, right? Cool. So that was cool. So I met Dave. He came and introduced me to Dave, and Dave's been an awesome mentor of mine, and has helped me out a lot, you know, just throughout the years. But it was cool. I was like the one recruit where he decided to recruit that day. So I got to like learn from him one-on-one, which is so fun. And yeah, this one day we're supposed to go out, supposed to shadow him, and he got like a toothache or something. And I've never knocked on my own, right? I've shadowed one day, and so like you should be good. Like you can go on your own. The other guy had another guy shadowing him, and I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do, you know? And so they dropped me off. And it's the first house on the corner in this small town. And I like get ready to skip the house and go to the next one because I'm like, these guys aren't going to buy. Like this house is kind of like not a super nice house, whatever. And then I'm like walking past and I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I just have to do it and get over my fears. So I go up, knock on the door, first door ever, just trying to like give my pitch the best I like remembered him saying it. And like, yeah, we've been looking at something like this. Like, come on in. And I'm like, trying to act like I've done this a million times.
What do I do?
Yeah, and there's no iPads. Like, that makes you sound really old. Like, doing everything on paperwork, you know. And I had to go back like 3 times and like fix it. But made like $550. And I remember like, dude, this was an hour of work and I made $550. And you talk about like that paradigm shift when you hear that, you know, your mission president, just the concept of retiring at 35, that's all you needed. It's just like that idea of like, oh, there's a paradigm shift. I don't need to trade my time for money as much as I was before, at least on an hourly basis. Like I can, it emphasizes this thing that we're talking about of like working harder and smarter for an easier tomorrow. And if I can go all in on this, even though it's a grind and it's uncomfortable, it's going to bless my life forever. And so, and yeah, that was like so many things I learned from that. But the coolest thing about being involved in it, as you know, there's a different dynamic. It attracts a certain type of people, especially from like a leadership standpoint and being able to grow. And so just learning from everybody there, as well as all the speakers that the company would pay and bring in was unreal. Like I remember going to like Tony Robbins' Business Mastery, and it was like an expensive trip for me at the time. Like all in, it was like 10 grand. Yeah. And I got invited to go. It was Casey. I think Casey, Baugh, and Brody were both in same room with me, and they asked me if I wanted to come, but like also didn't really give me a choice. Just kind of said like you're coming, you know, we're figuring this out, and you're coming. And I'm like, my wife's gonna kill me. Like we hadn't been married that long, and so I go, I do it. I remember being so guilty because it's like this. They like booked it all, you know, and I just paid for. And I'm like, it's the nicest hotel. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how much am I paying a night?
Yeah.
Dude? What is going on? But like completely changed the way I look at so many things. And like the conference was amazing and being around all them was amazing. But more than anything, like solidified this belief of I'm the person who now like I invest in myself. And whenever I invest in myself, I get the biggest return, and I'm going to get the biggest return out of anybody else in the room. I promise you that. And it's just this more of a mentality than anything. And so now like anything I invest in, like, and then it was like getting into like $1,000 or $2,000 course, right? It was like, do I spend the money on this? Like, yep, I'm going to be the person who gets the biggest return out of anybody who's ever gone through this training material.
Dude, I love that.
And so just that, I don't know, that kind of concept and being exposed to people who help you like to think bigger about your future than you initially thought was possible. I feel like that's one of the greatest gifts you can give somebody, because it completely changes your paradigm on life. It changes like what you can accomplish. And I mean, you think about it, if you have this 5-year goal and somebody says, hey, I think you can do something bigger and more impactful than that. And I think you can actually do that in 2 years and not 5 years. And let me show you kind of like those steps. Like, you're so grateful to that person because they change your life. You can now change other people's lives. And you just bought 3 years of your life back. That's a big deal. So,
breathing possibility.
Yeah, love that.
Dude, that's incredible. So you start hitting the doors, you start building the team. At some point along the way, you get married.
Yeah.
I want to dive into a little bit. When does real estate come in? How did that happen? And then I want to get back to the marriage part, because I know it's a core pillar of yours. But at what point did real estate start becoming, this might be actually my path, where maybe it's not actually the doors long term. Maybe I need to do this as a means to an end to do real estate long term.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's interesting because it was actually on accident. I wasn't the guy that was like, hey, I want to go invest in real estate and this sounds so cool and looks so cool. Like, nobody taught me that. No, my parents didn't do that. Like, I just wasn't exposed to that way of thinking, right, about real estate. My mom kind of got her license and she was an agent selling houses on the side a little bit. She's always been like a entrepreneur hustler, so I learned a lot from her from that. But a lot of my buddies from high school that were going to the same college as me, we were all looking for housing because we were going to the same school, and we were struggling to find just like rooms to rent anywhere. And so my mom was like, hey, why don't you just buy a house? And obviously I didn't think that was possible. And I legit thought I needed to pay cash for this house. And I'm like, this is pre-sales, I'm like, I don't have $165,000, which is the price of the house, which is funny because I just sold it for $550,000 a couple months ago.
That's legit, dude.
But which usually I don't sell properties, I keep them. But anyhow, so I'm like, okay, well, how does that work? And obviously I started like learning a little bit and how you can actually get a loan, and you can do that, with not as much money as you think is required to get it as a down payment. And so I'd worked with my grandpa, and I'd worked hard that summer, coming home from my mission. And so I had a little bit of money saved up, and my mom kicked in like $1,000 or $2,000 of her commission, so I'm like, okay, I can do this. But we started asking around like, hey, do you know anybody that's selling a home, ideally close to college campus, because this is where I'm going to school. And this lady that we know, she's like, someone that goes to my church, she just passed away. Maybe her kids like that have the house now, maybe they want to sell it. So you can imagine how that conversation went. Like, hey, sorry your grandma died, but if you want to sell her house,
for sure.
you can call me. And they're like, yeah, actually that'd be awesome. So got this house, awesome location.
Beautiful.
One house away from college campus. And that was a spot, man. There was one room, the basement, it was a split level house. The basement was unfinished and there were no windows. So it's all dark. And the carpet was, if you can picture like 100 different like shapes, colors, patterns of carpet cut into squares, hot glued down to the floor. And I know this because when we rehabbed it, I had to get all those off the ground. And then like tiles on the walls. Anyhow, like I wanted that to be my room because that was the least amount of rent I could get out of a room, and it's not even a legal room. And so I'm like, heck yeah, I'll live here because I can get more money out of the rest of the house, and later like cut windows in and remodel it all. But yeah, that was the first property. And even then I thought it was cool. Like I could tell my friends I owned my own house, and it sounded awesome. And I'm this single guy, and I lived in one room and rented the rooms out. And at the time I was working at Gold's Gym, and it wasn't even like a cool job, like the cool like trainer job. Like I would hope people would think I was a trainer. I would tell them, I would just say like, yeah, I work at Gold's Gym, and like I worked at the front desk, bro. So it wasn't that cool. But what would happen was I was trying to like make money, right? So I could afford to live. Luckily I had a scholarship for school. And then the rest of the time was like homework and, you know, maybe hanging out with friends a little bit. And it was like a full day, like between trying to work and do all these things. And so at the end of the time I get these paychecks, and I'm like, dude, this isn't that much money for as much time as it's taking up. And then at the same time, like all my friends would pay me rent, and then I would pay the mortgage on the property. I would pay any of the expenses. I was living there for free, and there was money left over, and it was more money than what was coming in from my Gold's Gym paychecks, right? And so that was probably like the aha or the epiphany moment where it was like, okay, this money I didn't work for, this money I traded time for, and I didn't love trading that time. And I think I want more of this money and less of this money that requires my time. So then from there I was like, what if I did this again and again, and could I do it again and again and again? And then I just jumped in the rabbit hole of learning about real estate.
And you just became obsessed.
Pretty much, yeah. I felt like I started to understand it a little bit, and I'm like, I'm seeing it happen. And I think, I mean, talk about like these different paradigm shifts, right? And like kind of what causes that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a few different things. And like even, you know, going back to just that one line that changed your whole way of thinking about something. It's like the one line where someone says, like they give you permission that like, hey, you can do that, you know? And then you give yourself permission and you say like, oh, I can actually do that. And then you get momentum and you start seeing these little wins, and you're like, okay, this is a real thing, right? And then you go all in on it. And so I feel like that's kind of what happened with real estate. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I did this. And then I started seeing it. And once I saw it and felt it and I saw what it was kind of doing for me, I'm like, okay, I want more of this.
And what would you say was your greatest teacher of real estate outside of experience? Were you looking at I don't even know if they had social media back in your day, bro.
Yeah, they didn't have cell phones. It was like you like stick your finger and you twist it and then it spins back. We would text our friends.
They were still using the Telegram.
It was actually Pony Express. We wrote letters and with rocks.
But like today, dude, like I would say all my knowledge of real estate's come truly 80% of it's come from social media and people I follow. Grant Cardone, Ryan Pineda, Brody Fausett, Pace Morby. It's like, dude, I've learned everything by following people, and it's all been free. Podcasts, books. How'd you gain all the knowledge?
Yeah. Such a good. It's so true. It's so different now. Even studying the gospel, like it's so different. Andrew and I teach gospel doctrine, and we're just talking about like, dude, it's completely different. Like before, it's like you open up your scriptures and that's like what you had to work with, you know? But for me, it was podcasts, man. So it's funny because you bring up Grant Cardone, and this is like before podcasts, but like, I had a conversation with Grant last week, which was cool. And
so
like,
sweet, dude.
And I didn't like realize how much of an impact he had on my life, because I agree with some stuff he says and some stuff I don't agree with. And like, it was fun. Like we kind of like, he's like, let's play a game, Brody. And like we battled it out, and it was cool to do that with him. But like, as I thought back, that's like the first self-help, personal development, business book I ever read. It was the 10X rule. And Dave Allred sent it to me. Dude, this is going to make me sound so old. I'm not old, bro.
I keep outdating.
Man,
I keep dating you, bro. But
so he sent me CDs, dude. So CDs. I'm like, man, I think the iPods were out. I know that. But anyhow, because I remember laying on my bed and I put it in my DVD player.
That's crazy.
And I was laying on my bed listening, right? And just going back to like having all this drive and not having direction. It was like another thing or another like mentor. It was like, dude, you can go do these things, and like you can do big things. And I would make the guy that recruited me when we drive out to area, like I'd bring my my stack of CDs, dude. And I'd stick it in the car and he'd make him play it in his truck before he dropped me off,
funny.
you know? But little things like that where you're like, I don't know, because you weren't exposed to it as much, like all of a sudden it starts to open your eyes and you're like, okay, this is cool. But that, and then getting into podcasts like Bigger Pockets podcast and it's funny because like Brandon Turner we both live on Maui now, and he's a really good friend. But I just devoured everything, dude, and I feel like I knew his entire life because I just would like so intently listen to the podcast and like go all in on it. And I'm just kind of like an all or nothing guy, which is good sometimes and bad other times. But for this in real estate, it was like, I became obsessed with it.
It's cool, dude. Casey Baugh, can't remember. I think it was on a call. I was with you and Mitch on the YEC call. I think he said, if you're not successful in 2024, it's because you're irresponsible. And it's like, dude, here you are, 2013, 14, 15. The information technology, knowledge, and people that we can learn from today versus even 5 years ago is so abundant. And we have access to everything. We now have Chat GPT, which is like, a whole nother world.
What is that? I'm just kidding.
And dude, it's just crazy how sometimes we wait. I'm waiting for the opportunity, or I got to learn this first. It's like, dude, if you go create it and you're intentional and you start being aggressive and utilize the free resources you have, you can go create whatever you want as soon as you want, as quick as you want, and as big as you want, which I know is something so big for you. And you've built your brand around dreaming bigger, faster.
Yeah.
Tell us what that means for you.
Yeah, dude.
And how that came about.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think it almost goes back to what we're talking about, right? Like, how have certain people shaped your life, and you asked me those questions and how did that happen and what was the process of that? And like the people I'm most grateful for are the ones that inspired me to dream bigger, but to do that faster and on so many levels, right? Because I think like when you're living a big life, and a big life doesn't mean big money. It doesn't mean, big house and big cars and like these big grandiose things. Like a big life is maximizing your potential. That could be, dude, my house, this is the smallest house I've ever lived in my life. It's probably 4 times smaller than the very, very first house that I bought. And we like couldn't be happier. Like it's amazing. Like absolutely love it. Right. And so like, it's not about that type of big, but it's like big for you. Right. And stretching and maximizing your potential. And so I just love that concept, and the people that have inspired me to think that way have absolutely changed my life. And then what it does is it allows you to inspire other people by the way that you're living. And it's almost a responsibility to go do these big things. And so love that concept. And I think just too many people don't dream big enough, right? We dream too static, too small, and too slow. And I think a lot of times it's just, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions you ask yourself. And too often we're trying to solve like the wrong equation. Like I'll give you an example, right? So let's say someone's listening, they want to go make $100,000, right? But they're capable of making $1 million. Well, you do the math and, okay, I need to make $100,000 this year. That means to make sure I'm on pace, I need to be making, at least $9K a month. If I want to make $9K a month to be on pace to hit my goal for the year, I need to break all that down. And that means I need to make, I don't know, what is that, $300 a day? Whatever, right? So everything they do and all the inputs that they're focused on is to get this $300 a day output, right? Because it's going to put them on pace to hit the 9K. It's going to put them on pace to hit the 100K. Well, like I think what changed everything for me is like, okay, for no rhyme or reason, like I want to make $1 million this year. So that's my new focus. I don't know how, I don't know why. I'm just going to like go for it. Right. And so now everything changes with that output. And so it changes the input. Right. And your identity almost changes. Right. And identity indicates inputs. If you see yourself as a certain person or, making a certain type of money, whatever it is, that's going to determine what input you actually put into things. And so now I'm behind pace. If I'm only making $300 a day, that's behind, right? So like I'm telling myself like, no, I need to make $3,000 a day, right? So whatever happens, like I'm not on pace. And so many times in life, and not just like finance related, but we start getting ahead of ourselves and we just like kind of autocorrect. It's like that internal thermostat, right? It's like, oh, I'm only supposed to be, $100,000 a year person, not $1 million a year person. And so I think all it takes is someone coming in to be like, bro, you're the $10 million a year person, or you're the $1 million a year person, for no rhyme or reason except for like, I freaking believe in you and it can be done. I'll show you how. These are the steps. Like, let's roll. No excuses. And it's not going to be in 10 years from now. It's not going to be in 5 years from now. You're not going to retire when you're 65 like everybody else does. Like I did it when I was 35. And that means you can do it. And I'm going to show you how. And all of a sudden it's like, boom, I'm dreaming bigger. I'm doing it faster. And I feel like that's, at the end of the day, that's where fulfillment comes from, is maximizing God-given potential. And too often people live like depressed lives because we get stagnant and we end up going through the motions. And I think it's like an intentional byproduct of going through the motions because God wants us to grow. We're here on this earth so we can have that growth and reach like our ultimate potential. So if you're not making strides towards that in all the categories of life, and you're living below your potential in each and every category, not just one category, but all of it, right? You're going to feel that. And so it's like the secret sauce to happiness.
I love that, bro. That's a nugget. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions you ask yourself. We wouldn't do this podcast justice if we didn't bring your wife into this. She's incredible. And you two have impacted, we were talking on the way here, impacted tons of people through goal setting and different retreats and different things that you guys have done together. What's cool about her, and you could give some context if you want, but she's also running a business, crushes it, and it's probably, she could be very, very busy. You're running your separate business, have a lot of different things that you're involved in, and you could be very, very busy as well. One thing I've always admired about you is you've found a way to could have a very busy life where you're involved in a lot of different things. But when I look at you, I don't see you as someone that's constantly bogged down or constantly drowning. And I would say if I were to describe Brody Fausett's life, it would be freedom. What does freedom mean for you, and how have you created that with your wife, even having your busy businesses that are crushing it and all the things that you're involved in?
Yeah, man. Such a good question, and a deep question too, because this is something that I feel like I'm just always trying to figure out, right? And trying to perfect. And every time I'm like, oh, I'm doing really good right now, then I realize I'm not doing good, right? So this is something I'm definitely not like the master at, but I love it. I love the concept of it and always trying to perfect it.
It's something that I think a lot of people think is almost a bad thing. It's like, oh, dude, I shouldn't have like a lot of freedom of time.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't be able to like automate these things in my life. And I feel like that's something that you've opened my mind a lot to.
Good, dude. Yeah. I think like, when I think about it, I consider myself a lifestyle entrepreneur, right? Where like I want to build a business around my life, not a life around my business. And if you think of like a filter, right? Like you put the bad stuff in and the good stuff comes out. That's the idea of it, right? And so you think of like an oil filter, whatever it is, right? That's the whole concept. And I think too many times people like, they look at this filter as like for their business rather than for their life. And so the end product is like, how can I get this business that I want to create? So they'll pour their life and pour everything in to like kind of create the business. And I think it needs to be the other way around. I think the lifestyle needs to come first. Like what's the life that you want to live? And you talked about life by design, and that's it. Like you design that first. You don't design your business first, and then you fit everything else around that business related. So then you get to a point where you're doing business to live your life, and not the other. You're living your life not to just do business. And so I I think that's the start of it, and just being clear on, I don't know what it is, but for me, it's always fired me up. Just being able to like close my eyes and like, dude, where do I want to live? Like, what time do I want to wake up? What kind of impact do I want to make? Who do I want to be with? How do I want to spend my time? What kind of kids do I want to raise? All these different things that kind of like dreaming up this lifestyle is so fun for me and so fulfilling. And I get like that dopamine hit, probably like a lot of people. And that's where like, you know, like dreaming it, writing it, building it, living it comes from, because for me, like it's already been created. And a lot of people say things are created, you know, 2 times, once in your mind, once in reality. Yeah. I think they're actually created 3 times, right? Like, yeah, once in your mind, you dream it up, but like 2, when you write it down, like most of the things that I've accomplished in my life, almost everything, it's been written down so many times, like again and again and again and again, and then it happens, right? And then obviously the last one is like when you build it and you living it, you know, and creating it in reality. But for me, like, because that's been so fun for me to like create that and then to go like build that, and it gives all these things like a purpose for me to go and do, whether that be like my marriage, whether it be, you know, living in Maui full time now, like these things that I thought I would never do, but I just got so excited and like got obsessed with like, this is the type of lifestyle that I want, that building it became the easy part, and it became the fun part because I knew exactly what I was doing. And so I think like everything starts there. But yeah, like speaking of my wife, dude, I mean, it's been, she's legit. She's
awesome, dude.
She's unreal. I tell everybody, I'm just like, you know, you listen to maybe YouTube videos or like, you know, somebody on social media like saying all these things like put your alarm clock in the other room, or like don't do blue light before, whatever. Like she actually does that stuff, you know, like anything she preaches or talks about, she actually does it, and she follows through, and just like her discipline's on a whole nother level. And it's like one of the coolest things we did together was we ran a 174 mile stage race, you know. Yeah. Well, dude, 100 miles into this, she finds out she's pregnant, and that's Mia, like our youngest now. And I'm just like, she's a baller. Like I could barely finish this race like dead, and then she's like, well, I did it pregnant. So like all my clout just went out the window. But yeah, just unreal. Like one of the coolest things recently is to see like her like take a step back from everything, and like the boundaries that she sets. Speaking of like balancing, you know, she has 8-figure business, you know, and like she works 12 hours a week, and she's very, very strict on those 12 hours, like to the point where if I try and bring something up that's business related and it's not within those windows, it's like, hey, just say this for tomorrow. We'll talk about tomorrow. Because it's like, I'm in mom mode now, and like I'm ready to be a mom.
That's a crazy amount of intention.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's impressive. We spent some time with you guys in Virgin Islands, dude, and she is a force to reckon with, man. she crushes it, dude. What does she mean to you, and how have you guys made your marriage what it is today?
Yeah. I mean, she means everything to me. Easy answer.
I'm sending this to her, so.
Maybe she'll listen to it, maybe she won't. To be honest, it's funny. I'm like, you don't like, you know, just different podcasts I've been on, and you didn't want to listen to it. Like, oh, I will, at some point. I always tease her about it, but no, did she like? She's been through a lot, right? Just in general, and with everything in life, and like most recently, just going through. We had 4 miscarriages in a row, which was, you know, hard on like any dad in general. But then you think about like your wife going through that, and I mean, it's a lot, right? And like literally, you go in and like they have to like take parts of the baby out of you, you know, like multiple times, and you're just like, dude, like what's, you know, like we thought we were done having any more kids, and. Yeah, sorry, trying to get emotional out, but it's cool. She's, you know, 8 months pregnant right now.
Miracle, man.
And, you know, it is for sure It is for sure. And I'm still a girl dad, girl number three, dude, which is crazy. But just like, yeah, just seeing how, you know, she handles that and like takes care of everything with our family. Like she for sure is the rock there, you know, and yeah, does an amazing job with all of that.
I love it, dude. Last question to finish up. You're surrounded a lot of your time is surrounded by young entrepreneurs, investors, people that are 18, 19, 20 to 25, 26. I think you deal with a lot of younger people, all of them with aspirations to go do big things or they have big dreams. What's the number one common mistake you see in 18 to 24-year-old young entrepreneurs today? That if you could like grab them by the shoulders and shake them like, don't do this or do this, what would you tell them?
Just one thing?
Dude, we could go all day, but share the most relevant for you.
No, I just had like a bunch of thoughts just all go through my mind all at once, right? And I think like you're best positioned to serve who you once were, right? So that's why all these things go through my mind because I'm the old guy now, you know, 31, super old now, so I can say this stuff. No, I'm just kidding. But for me and for most people, and the biggest piece of advice I would give is to, I mean, it sounds cliche because we've talked about it so much, but like to dream bigger. And what goes along with that is just like understanding you don't know what you don't know. And the problem with feeling like you know everything and you have everything figured out is you're not open to anything else. It's just like the analogy of the person who's like, my targets are set on 100K. If I do this, I'm doing better than all my friends around me, and I'm going to be crushing life, and this is better than my parents, and this is, you know, that's an arbitrary number. But like what I wish I could tell everybody is like, you're focusing on the wrong number, because all you have to do is change your focus to this and think a little bit bigger, and then surround yourself with people who have been there, done that, that can literally show you step by step. If you were to just back up, zoom out, look at everything from a bird's eye view of here I am and here's where I want to go. How do I get there, and who can I learn from to be able to get there? Because so many people are capable of that, but they just don't allow themselves to do that.
As I've sat in this podcast, I realized that I need to dream a lot bigger, and I think I've gotten to a point where it's like, dude, this was my dream 4 years ago, and now I got the dream, and now I need a redream. And so how do you make sure that you never arrive and that you're always dreaming? A friend once told me last week, he said, possibilities exist, but limits are created. Like God never created limitations. It wasn't like on the 8th day, I create limitations. They didn't exist. Possibility does, but we self-create limitations, limits. We cap ourselves. And I've recognized that within myself. How do you never arrive and are continually like, cool, what's next? What's next? While still being super fired up, excited, and present, recognizing all the good that you're currently doing. Loaded question.
Yeah, no, but it's so good, and it's something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, just because it's one of those dynamics of life, you know, like you're constantly in these ebbs and flows, and I think life's less about balance and more about balancing, right? So sometimes you're going to feel like you're crushing it in this area, and other times you're going to feel like you're crushing it, and I do think it's part of it, right? And you got to understand that. But I love, like, I think it's Ed Milet who says it, but he talks about blissful dissatisfaction. And I just love that concept because, one, you talked about a little bit earlier, but we're ingrained in this, like, go, build, bigger, right? That, like, when we actually get there, we don't stop to really enjoy it, right? And actually remember, like, this is what I've been building. And I love, like, the saying of, you know, it's something along the lines of like, remember like what you have now, what you're enjoying now, like at once it was something you only dreamed of.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a process of like one thing I've been implementing every morning before like I do anything else is meditating. And it's like forced me to like pause with everything going on. It's forced me to pause and clear my mind and just remember like how grateful I am for what I have now, and how grateful I am for the moment, and how important it is to just be present with everything going on. And so this concept of like blissful dissatisfaction is like enjoying the moment and being so grateful for it, but at the same time you're not settling for below your potential. And I think like the best way to kind of like decipher that is like, are you at your potential? Not like, are you at this level, or are you doing this or making this much money or living? No. Do you feel like you've reached your potential? And even if the answer is no, but like I'm going there, if I'm crawling, if I'm walking, that's okay. Like the important thing is, as long as you're moving, right? You can enjoy things and be present and be happy and so grateful and still be moving.
I love that. Matthew McConaughey always talks about chasing yourself 10 years down. And then you get there, it's like, yeah, dude, I'm going another 10. I'm chasing. And progression is what creates the fulfillment. Progression is what keeps the happiness. So I love that, man. I think anyone listening to this has a lot of evaluating to do, and hopefully a lot of resetting of, hey, where am I going? What are my dreams? How big or small am I thinking? Where do I need to adjust them? And I'm grateful for your knowledge, man. I'm grateful for the wisdom that you just laid on us. And a lot of it's what you said, and even more of it's who you're being and who you are and what you've created. And I'm grateful for that evidence, because that's what inspires me, and that's what inspires people that know you and that follow Brody Fausett, is because the things you say are great, but the actions and who you are and who you're being is ultimately what we're trying to catch up to and become. And so grateful for you, so grateful to have you on, and I appreciate the wisdom that you laid on us. Before we sign out, any last words?
Dude, the only thing is just thank you. I mean, obviously your listeners know this. This is why they're listening to you and following your advice and your wisdom. But man, just, obviously respect you so much. I'm glad that we're connected, brother, because I've learned so much from you, and I know that you're already impacting so many lives. But it's just the beginning, and you know that, and I know that, and everybody else listening knows that. But just like publicly, like, just proud of you, dude, and what you're doing. And I'm so grateful you had me on the show.
Thank you, brother. Means a lot. Love you a ton.